So good morning, everyone. Welcome and thank you for being here. We are starting today a series of presentations that is mostly aimed for grade 10 families, but this first one, since it's a presentation that will share some broad knowledge and information about how the IB works at our school. This entails from Shaka, ECE, all the way up until grade 12. So we thought it was very important and interesting for everyone to participate. Okay. My name is Mirella Kacinskis. I am the DP coordinator.
And I am Nathan Perry. I am the assistant DP coordinator. I've been working with Mirella to develop the program going forward.
So, okay, we have some goals and aims. Let's hope that some of these are clearer for you by the end of the presentation. We want to make sure that you understand the IB framework outside and how it works in our school. IB is a big enough institution that allows for schools to apply and implement the framework in a way that works in their schools. We also are going to do something with the learner profile. So we gave you this, which is the IB learner profile. These are some attributes that IB learners should work with students to develop those attributes. And we are also going to answer questions you might have regarding the IB at our school. So the first thing we want to make sure is that we are all understanding that the IB and nation's mission, they are very aligned. So our school's mission is educate students to be world citizens based on standards of academic and ethical excellence, to develop their capacities to know, love, and serve humankind. And this is all within the IB framework. And this was one of the reasons why the school chose to bring this academic program to the school. It is very well aligned with what we were doing before. So just as an overview, the IB, the International Baccalaureate, is an international institution, and it has 4 programs in education. These 4 programs are the primary years program, which is aged usually ECE and elementary. Then the middle years program, which is aimed more towards middle school and early high school. The Diploma Programme for high school, and the career-related program, which is an alternative program for high school. Currently at Nations, we offer the PYP and the DP. So those are the 2 that we already have. They are implemented for a year. So we've been working together, and we're going to see a little bit of how both of them align in our school. And one of the main goals of bringing the program, which was something that we were already and we've been always working towards, is give students the structure to develop student agency. The idea is to move away from only compliance and actually having them engaged in their learning and being able to ask questions, to question in the good sense, in the sense of actually being inquiry-based and knowing that they should understand their surroundings in order to make good choices for themselves and for their future. So the IB programs, all of them, they also encourage this in students.
So I would like to review what exactly does it mean when we say that we are an IB educator. We're going to go through these 5 bullet points, each on their own slide, but this is an overview. So we take students and we try to develop them in these kinds of ways. We want them to be international thinkers. Okay? We don't want them to just think about their local environments, but also the implications that it has in places around the world. We also want them to become critical thinkers, inquirers, and communicators. There are many times when students are required to communicate ideas in a clear and coherent way, and we're developing those skills for university. There's also this sense of purpose, okay? To be able to go out into the world and create a better place. Okay? There are students who are prepared for university by the rigor that we provide as an IB educator, as an IB educational institution. And finally, we have resilient, self-motivated learners. So, first, international mindedness. What does that look like? Okay? We're talking about case studies that come from all around the world. Okay? In all of their disciplines, they're seeing international case studies. I teach English language and literature, so we are reading literature from around the world. Diverse authors from different countries and time periods. It is a requirement of the IB to teach students literature from the 19th century, okay? To try to give them that different sense of time and place in literature. Finally, we have global perspectives. So they are looking at how things might apply in Brazil, but they're also able to see how that applies in India or Luxembourg, anywhere around the world. Critical thinking is number 2. What does that look like? The IB framework really emphasizes conceptual-based learning. The concepts are what is transferable between disciplines. So, what does it mean to be an immigrant? What does it mean to be a refugee? This is the kind of inquiry question that we will pose to students, and they will discuss that through history, through language, even through science sometimes. Okay? Students will create their own questions. This is about that student agency that Mirella was talking about. This idea that students get to decide what do they want to explore. And then finally, we're using real-world complex problems in our class so that they can apply what they're learning. Contributing to the community. What does that look like? Community involvement is a requirement. Okay? There's something called CAS. Okay? There's something in PYP which I believe is called actions. But it's this idea that you're going beyond the borders of the school to help other people. So that is a requirement from the IB. Communicating ideas in small and large group settings. It could be something like this, where we're speaking in front of a group, public speaking skills, okay? But it could also be small group interactions. Classes remain grounded in the local community. So students are working with local organizations. They're working here at the school with students that are already participating in our community. The IB is a good preparation for university, whether that's here in Brazil or outside of the country. So there is a wide range of disciplines that students are able to interact with. So they get exposure to a lot of different methods and procedures in the IB. Learning happens in many different ways. Teaching and learning happens in many different ways. So one day you might be doing a free write classroom. The next day you're doing a lab in science. The next day you are taking on a role. You're role playing in history from somebody famous in history. Okay? This is helping you learn in many different ways, and it also provides students a different way of being assessed in every single class. So assessment might look different in each discipline. Independent work is often based on student choice. So they will be able to choose a pathway that interests them. Finally, because of the rigor and the expectations from the program, time management is something that students will develop over time. So we have a lot of support here at the school to help students understand what do I need to prioritize in order to be able to succeed. So students gain skills through mentorship on how they can appropriately budget their time. Finally, we come to this idea of resilience and motivation. So when students are allowed to decide things on their own and given a little bit of empowerment, they are able to learn how to prioritize tasks. They also have support here at school when they're feeling overwhelmed, but they also have a voice in their educational choices. So, what classes am I going to take? Okay. We do have some flexibility in what courses they can take.
So, how do we do all this? And what is the foundation that helps us do all these things? The IB has what we call the IB learner profile. We also had, before the IB, we already had a nations profile, which is very much aligned. But since we're focusing on the IB today, let's learn more about this learner profile. And the learner profile is a set of attributes that are being encouraged. So we as teachers, we as educators, we are encouraging students to develop these attributes so that they can do all of those things that Mr. Perry was sharing with us successfully. So as we work in our classrooms, as we work on the hallways, as principals interact with students, as we see students interacting with students, and also teachers, we have a collaborative teachers meeting for IB teachers, and we also try to focus and develop these skills among ourselves too. So this is not only for students, but the whole community, because as we develop these attributes, we believe that we become better learners and better people to contribute to humankind. So you received something, and we're gonna do something today so that we can see how these profile attributes are already within ourselves, and some of them that might not be as well as explicit. So I invite you now to take a look at your...
Who needs a copy? I know that I saw some people come in.
I invite you to take a look and read the descriptions for these attributes. So these are characteristics that we encourage students to develop. And I'll give you 1 or 2 minutes to take a look and read all of those. Are we good? Almost there? here's something that we do with our students, and this is, for example, the framework that PYP has been using to reflect, for students to reflect on their learning, and this is something that we're gonna do today with you too. So the idea is that we're going to choose for ourselves 2 glows and a grow. So our 2 glows are 2 of these attributes that you believe best represent you today. It doesn't have to be every day because we know how days are not the same. So which ones would you feel that are 2 that best represent you as people today? And also 1 grow, which is already get your minds into thinking, which of these do you feel like could be one that maybe it's not your strongest and you would like to develop further? So think about it and share with the person who's sitting next to you. Especially if you don't know that person, that's even better. Okay. Did you get it? Still thinking of our 2 grows and 2 glows and 1 grow? First, thank you for engaging and participating with the people next to you. Now let's take 1 step further, because all right, we reflected, we identified, but let's take action. So one thing we would encourage in our students is, now that I have 1 grow, what could be, and this is for us today, after we identified our grow, or the thing that we can work on, what could be some small steps you could take in your personal or professional life, because depending on the grow, this could be either or, and to grow in that area. So not only identifying, oh, I need to improve in this, but let's think of actionable things that we could do in order to take that grow a little bit closer to a glow. So reflect on that a little bit, and and if you're gonna be a risk taker and you would like to share with us, I would love to hear from some of you. It doesn't have to be your grow, but how this process made you feel, or what you've shared, and how you're feeling about this. Anyone? Thank you.
Yeah, so the first small step is stopping here because my role is escaping. So I'm already taking, that was an easy one. An easy one to grab. But I think for parents of kids and everything, risk taking is sometimes very challenging. One small step here on one side that it's not, we can have a big fall and it's not good for the family. We're not willing to take that risk, but I think one thing, it's at first, we just 1 minute think about it, it was plan, work hard to minimize the risk. Take the risk, but take into account what kind of reward you're getting and to make sure that the risk is worth taking.
Thank you.
So I also see some critical thinking in there. So it looks like you're a thinker now, because you're thinking about the calculated risk.
Amazing. Anyone else? Now you don't have to feel pressured anymore. Someone did it for us. So this is an example of some of how we can try and bring it to our lives, because one of the things that we wanted to have this conversation with you is that we are an IB school, so the whole community is under these understandings and is trying to thrive for that learner profile in our daily lives. This is maybe something that we can use at home, talking to our kids. I use it all the time. My two girls are here, and I talk to them about being a risk taker. I talk to them about being reflective. So this is something that is good to be in our vocabulary now, from now on, so that they also feel connected. As the school and home, they are connected. The things that they do here, they can bring home, and you will understand. You will know what they're talking about. And this starts at our school. This starts in PYB. So you're gonna see sometimes in our presentations, in IB materials, these concentric circles, and this is how IB organizes their structure. So going from inside to outside, these would be the core ideas. So every IB program is centered on approaches to teaching and approaches to learning, which the IB profile just showed us a good foundation to develop that. So in PYB, they already start working with agency, they have the exhibition, so the communication and action, like Mr. Carey was telling us on service and giving back to the community. And then we can see that only then we talk about areas of knowledge. So there's a focus here that goes beyond knowing content and areas of knowledge, and that is the foundation. And then a little bit wider is what that represents to the bigger world, to the outside, to the real world. So how what we do in school extends outside of the school. So this is the PYP framework, and how the PYB is already, since we are DP coordinators and we called you for this meeting, we wanted to help you understand how, okay, if the DP is the ultimate goal in this school, if that's what students are going for, let's understand a little bit of what's the path towards that.
Sorry.
Sure.
Actually, going back to all the profiles, I think one of the biggest challenge would be, because these are all intangible, most of them are intangible, and to make sure that the children are progressing, are making progress, how do you measure that? How can you make sure, and also because it's 10, 20, maybe 15, 20 in the classroom, it's hard to measure that everybody's making the needed progress on all those areas of intangibles. So how does that work?
That's an excellent question. So these are all characteristics that, as we started the dynamics they might be, they show up differently on different days, in different moments of our lives. The idea is to know about them, to see every time that I can show how I am knowledgeable, every time that I can show how I'm caring, that is already a step towards developing that more and more. So there is no one single way that we will stop and say, okay, this is your check for caring, you don't have to work on that anymore. This is an ongoing conversation, and by doing the activities, by having them show how they are also acknowledging those, because sometimes it will come from them. Did you see how I was a good communicator back then when I was presenting my PYP exhibition, grade 5 exhibition? So as we bring this to the day-to-day conversation, we can see how some of these, for some students are easier, for some students we're encouraging others, so that's the idea. It's not, especially not in PYP, and then later on in the DP, we are also developing this in our lives. So the idea is to have this growth mindset, this idea of we acknowledge the profile, and we're always having that in consideration to make sure that we're giving opportunities for students to develop those. Do you want to add anything?
For me, I do what I call, I notice something. So it isn't so much of a judgment, but it's more of, I notice that the student is showing good thinking skills right now. So it doesn't make it feel too pervasive, but it's just a simple way of saying, I see what you're doing. So now we're going to transition into the diploma program. So PYP is that foundational program. And then when they come to DP, they've already developed a lot of those skills. And so now we're just going to refine them even further. And so choice is something that we really like to talk about in the DP. So finding what students' personal interests are, and then they will get motivated by making those personal decisions that are based on their interests. Career explorations, finding out what careers might students actually be interested in studying. Okay, right now here at high school, would they like to experiment with something? Development of your critical skills, critical thinking skills, personal development and self-discovery. Maybe they're not quite sure about a particular class, but you know what? They're going to be a risk taker, and they're going to try it. And then finally, improve academic performance because they're aligning their interests with what they're actually studying in school, all while meeting educational requirements. So this is this concentric circles that represents the DP program. So as you'll see in the very center, we still have approaches to teaching and approaches to learning, because that is the foundation of everything we do. Outside of that, we have something which is called the core. All DP candidates do the core. In our next presentation, we will get more specific about those 3 different areas, but all of the DP candidates have to fulfill the requirements for those three components. So then, in the DP, you have 6 subject groups: language and literature, language acquisition, sciences, the arts, mathematics. Individuals and societies is basically social science or humanities. So that is what creates the student profile, basically what they will study in the DP. Yeah. So the DP is the penultimate course that they will take in high school. It is during year 11 and 12. It is a 2-year program. So what that means is at grade 11, they don't suddenly stop taking that class and then and then do another course in grade 12. They actually continue the subject material that they started or they ended grade 11 with, and they're going to continue it into grade 12. This is to help facilitate learning and preparing for the Ivy World exams. There is academic rigor, relying on those skills that were developed during the PYP. We are focusing on internationalism. So students will be engaging in history and science and math that they've learned from all around the world. The learner profile, which is what you're holding in your hands, it encourages and enriches the entire person. So we are not simply teaching to a test. We are developing a whole person using these learner profiles. It opens opportunities to attend the highest ranking universities in the world. Okay? So whether you're here in Brazil, whether you're here, whether you're going outside the country, it will still be helpful to develop skills that you will use at university. Finally, there is a lot of talk about, okay, what does the IB contribute in terms of alignment with the Bay and say? It is well aligned with the requirements of Brazil. So we feel confident as a school that you will be able, that your student will be able to still be prepared for those kinds of exams. And I'm going to let Ms. Mirella talk about that.
Just that's exactly it. To show how this is true, Brazilian universities do accept. There's a multitude of Brazilian universities that accept the IB as an entrance exam. So as the students complete the whole program and they finish their IB exams, they will receive in the end a diploma with a grade and all of the record of what subjects they took and how they did in each of those, including the core components, which are those three. So all of that creates this portfolio that students can use, and Brazilian universities are recognizing the value in that and how that has shown how they developed well as students and how they can take the challenges of higher education, having self-management skills, being reflective learners, being knowledgeable and inquiry-based. So the Brazilian institutions are already recognizing that. And the IB diploma is already accepted as entrance, not only outside of Brazil, but also by Brazilian institutions, which shows that there is alignment to a point that it is already being recognized. Okay, they don't need to do a specific vestibular if they already shown, they have already shown a growth and development in the IB program.
So these are the 6 subject groups that students will be exposed to during the DP. So math, everyone has to take math. Sciences, everyone has to take science. Language and literature, everyone has to take language and literature. Language acquisition, these are for students that are still gaining familiarity in a particular language. Our students, by and large, have good familiarity in both English and Portuguese. So language acquisition will often be for international students, okay, that maybe haven't developed a second language as strongly as the students that are here. Individuals and societies, that's your humanities. Okay.
Just an addition, since our students are usually very well proficient in both English and Portuguese, they will not have to take a language acquisition, but having 2 languages is an IB requirement. So they will take both of their languages, Portuguese and English, in the level of proficiency of studies in language and literature. So this is one thing that we have as something different in our school, because most of our students are not at the level of language acquisition anymore. That means that they're able to be exposed and to take 2 courses in language and studies in literature and language.
And then finally we have the arts, which is a choice for all students to be able to study arts at a very high level, and with Ms. Gianna.
Individual societies,
Individuals and societies is like your history or your social studies course. So everyone has to take one of those courses. So currently we offer history and Brazilian social studies. I guess 2 other classes. Those are the main ones. The core activities, all DP candidates will be required to fulfill these components. So creativity, activity, and service is well known by its acronym CAS. This is basically service. This is learning how to do something creative. For theory of knowledge, I teach theory of knowledge. The question that we're always seeking to interrogate is, how do we know what we know? Some people call it a philosophy class. It isn't the strictest philosophy class, but it's really our way of challenging our assumptions and how we see the world. And finally, the extended essay, led by Miss Elena. It is a work, basically a written work, an essay about a particular interest that the student has. And they will get a mentor here at the school, and they will write this.
So the extended essay, it's pretty much a monografia, trabalho de conclusão de curso, TCC, it's something on those lines. The skills developed are exactly the same skills. How does that look at nations? Like I said, the International Baccalaureate is an international institution. Different schools in different places, in different regions and countries, they might have different requirements, local requirements, national requirements. So there is a good flexibility for schools to implement the program in a way that works for that specific context. So here at Nations, we created 2 paths that students can choose. So this is why we're starting this, and this is why this series of workshops later after this first one will be more focused on grade 10 parents, families, and students, because we're gonna be deciding together throughout the year how that will look like for each of our grade 10 students. Next year they will be entering the program in grade 11. So how does it work? Because we have different interests, realities, there are some students who already have some ideas of what they want to do after school. Some of them have interests in X, Y, Z universities, and different universities around the world might have different requirements for entrance. That means that we created 2 ways for them to choose what would fit better with their plans. These 2 paths are the diploma path, which would be taking all of this conversation that we talked as a package and doing it all just like the IB created it. So having taking the 3 core components, making sure that they're completing this, having the 6 groups. There are going to be, we don't have to go there now, but as they are enrolled in the IB, there are some requirements of levels. So these courses, they are taught at different levels. There's a higher level, there's the normal standard level, but then there's a higher level, and students have to make a combination of that. So there are all of these rules and requirements that IB created in the sense of creating this well-rounded student. And our diploma path is just making sure that the students are checking all of those boxes, making sure that they are aligned with the program as the IB envisioned. However, we understand that for some students and families, sometimes, I don't know, maybe it's a student athlete, and they already have all of these commitments outside of school, and maybe they wouldn't be able to complete all of the IB requirements to the level that would be manageable to that reality. So we also have what we call the certificate path, which is still an IB education, still the 6 courses, but all of those small, all of that list of requirements, for example, completing the core, maybe that's not gonna be mandatory for these other students who go to the certificate path. Because if they do not complete all of these 3, they might have a little bit more flexibility with their time and with the courses they're taking here at school, and that could help them manage the workload. So by having 2 paths, we are ensuring that they are still all together taking IB courses, being exposed to the learner profile and the IB education, but the extent to which they are compromised with the IB requirements is adjusted to their reality. So this is what we do from grade 10 to grade 11, having conversations with students, with parents, to understand which one of these two paths is more suitable. And inside these paths, then what are the courses they're going to take, what are the choices. All of these conversations, they occur with the help of Ms. Michelle Ray, which is our excellent college counselor. And she's very knowledgeable both in Brazil and abroad. So having her on board when we are making these decisions or actually helping students taking these decisions is something that is very valuable. So the idea is that each student will have a set of courses and a combination that makes sense to them and to their goals. How do we help? So how do we, throughout this journey, how do we help you get there? And especially the students, right? So this is the first step. Understanding the program. Knowing us, our faces, and knowing that we are here to support you and to answer questions. Getting closer to grade 10 families to go through this process of academic orientation, talking about student interests, having conversations and meetings with Ms. Michelle also. So all of this process of academic orientation is the first line of action that we can have to help you and your children. Throughout the year, starting in grade 9, especially in grade 10, and of course throughout grades 11 and 12, we are very close to students to give support to students to make adjustments in their choices, to give them resources in their IB journey when they're in 11th and 12th grade. So we've become very close to the IB students, which are all grades 11 and 12. We also might have communications, sometimes in the forms of meetings, sometimes some letters that are going to be sent out, other invitations to other types of events. So we want to make sure, like I was saying, that this is open so that we can make sure that everyone is on board and that everyone understands the paths, the choices, and the goals. And we also work with administration, with the teachers, with grades 9 and 10 teachers to make sure that we are all aligned and that the whole school, and especially high school, so from grade 9 on, everyone understands the framework and everyone is collaborating to help students get there successfully.
I want you to take a look at this photograph. This was a photograph that we took last year during our nation's anniversary. I want you to see yourself and your student inside of that picture. And I want you to think about joining us as an IB family and what that means for you and your family. And what does that look like? So we're taking your child where they are today, and we're going to help guide them to become creative, caring, considerate young adults that we know that they can be. So with that sort of in your mind, I want to invite you and welcome you to the IB family here at Nations. So I hope that you can see yourself as a part of our community.
We want to thank you all for being here. Just to make sure that any communications, if you need, if there's something, if you're already there in the IB, even with the PYP, there's a strong recommendation to always contact students and teachers. If there's anything that you need further on, we are, as DP coordinators or PYP coordinator, Tatiana, Ms. Tatiana, we can also help. And still, if you need more support, then we do have principals head of school. So everyone, the whole school is here to support you, but we are probably the people who are going to be very open and available to solve any questions that you have, especially regarding the DP program. And just before I can open up for questions, if you have them, we're going to send more specific invitations for the following conversations that we're having. These are going to be focused a little bit more in grade 10, but as you move towards grade 10, this will be you, if you're not a grade 10 parent right now. And that's the idea that from now on, we are going to be making ourselves more available to grade 10 families, because those are the families who need our support a little bit more this year, and they prepare for their IB journey in the DP program.
Do you mind if I just ask, are there any elementary school parents here? Okay, so there's a few. Okay, middle school parents? Okay. Sure.
And grade 10 parents specifically? Okay, awesome.
And 11.
And 11, yes. Yeah, right. Okay, thank you so much for being here, for collaborating and participating. And if you have any questions, we're here to solve any issues.
Lissandra, Matthias mother. Well, I'd like to understand how this is going to work on a practical level, because I understand from last year that you don't have Brazilian curriculum right now separated from the IB. You have the same, you the same. But I was talking to a teacher in the beginning of the school year, and he told me that, for example, if you choose, I don't know, chemistry this year, you have to do physics the next year. You cannot go to one path, one, for example, biology. You have to have all the disciplines, but even if in different years, because of the Brazilian curriculum. Can you explain how it works?
Yes. So, okay. The alignment with Brazilian education, yes, we don't have different paths in the sense of international, national. We were able, because of the alignment, we are able to make sure that IB and BNCC and the Brazilian national system, they are intertwined. So what we need to make sure is to look at what are the IB requirements. For example, 6 subjects, 1 in each area. What are the Brazilian requirements? For example, all sciences in high school. That might be different in other countries. Maybe in other countries a student can take only biology and that's their science, and that's their contact with science. Not in Brazil. So in Brazil they have, all students need to have biology, chemistry, and physics, sociology, and history, and geography. So given that framework, the work that we do is that we have offerings in IB, and those offerings of courses, they're always courses that align with BNCC. So we offer in the sciences, chemistry, physics, biology, for example. And anything else that the student needs to take for completion of the Brazilian requirements, we also offer them. Just not in the IB setting, because the IB requires students to take 6 subjects in the IB setting. I say the IB setting because then they will have to complete a specific amount of assignments, the final assessment. So that idea, that framework of the final assessment, completing the internal components towards throughout the 2 years, that will be done for 6 subjects only. But then they do have in their timetable, if the student is taking biology, they will have chemistry and physics. So there is an alignment in the sense that all of the requirements, I'll just keep using that word, they will be met, but maybe through different perspectives. So we will focus the IB framework in 6 of the subjects, and all of the other subjects will still happen throughout high school. Did that answer your question? It's not a separation of I will give up something to do the IB, or I'm giving up the IB because I want the national. It is,
Then you have all the requirements for the
For both.
curriculum.
For
For example,
both.
they have height standards for 3 of this, and then the standard level and the others, and then they have still other disciplines.
yes, because the IB are 6 disciplines, so the rest of the timetable is filled in with all of the other subjects. And even when we say BNCC, there are some things, for example, PE, physical education is a BNCC requirement for because of the ECA, Estatuto da Criança e do Adolescente. Every children and teenager, they have the right to be exposed to physical education, to exercise sports. So that is also, and that might not be the reality in other schools in other countries. So that's, all of that alignment is thought of when we are creating even the offerings. And that's why we're not talking about that now, because the offerings of what subjects are offered, that depends on the group of students, the timetable, Brazil, their interests. It's a jigsaw.
Hi, 2 questions. For the students who choose the DP, the IB program, by the end of 12th grade, they're gonna have both the diploma, the IB diploma, and the history, the school history as Brazilian standards, right? And the second question is how does the schedule look like? Do they have after school subjects as well, or it's all within the school hours?
So yes, that's true. The school, every student who is graduating from School of the Nations will have the national curriculum because of the transcript. We are a signatory of Secretaria de Educação, so every student that is in our school will graduate with that. The IB diploma is an addition. So as the students choose, okay, I want to take all of that and I want to take the exam because, like I said, that's a choice. Then the diploma program, the IB diploma will be in addition to that. We are currently working with the timetable, and every subject that they need to take is within the timetable until 3:10. So sometimes they do extra work for CAS, for example. Sometimes they have CAS component, is that creativity, activity, and service. So maybe they are working together to complete one of the requirements of CAS. Maybe they are leading a project with service. So they might, and they will probably stay a little bit later to make sure that they complete everything. Sometimes they're running an experiment for an extended essay in chemistry. So, but those are not classes. There is the expectation and there is the support for them to do these extra moments to be able to make sure that they are completing everything, but that's classes are until 3:10. Anyone else?
It's just a basic one. The Spanish classes for the high school then ends at 10th grade. They won't have it on 11 and 12.
Currently, no.
As a grade 11 mom, I would just like to let you all know, you who have kids up to grade 10, that you don't need to be scared or anything, because we sit with Mirella a few times. I mean, I sat with you a couple of times and we decided everything. So it might be scary and overwhelming at this beginning of the journey, but everything makes sense and everything will be all right. And I love the fact that you talked to students last year, and initially you weren't going to offer a few subjects, but students wanted to have that, several of them, so you managed to have a teacher for that subject. So I mean, you're very flexible and you can come in at any time, and it works.
Thank you. Yeah, the offerings are they depend on the student and on the group of students. So that is a flexibility that we have.
They still have time for for example, French. You still have time.
Yes, since classes finish at every 10. They can still do after school. There's only the workload, the managing of the workload, right? So by planning, by having a set of goals and developing their self-management skills, they can still participate in some of the after-school activities they were already engaging in.
How about middle school IB program? Because you're talking about PYP, I know the school is still working on middle school part of it. So what's the plan for the future?
Hi everyone, good morning. I'm Keith, for those of you that don't know, I work with the academics, I'm the Chief Teaching and Learning Officer. So here's the deal with IB, how it works. Most schools globally, they start with the Diploma Program, and you first have to build that foundation and do it really well. Diploma in Primary Years Program, the PYP. So you start on the ends, okay? Once you spend a few years really building that, you can analyze and say, does this make sense for our middle school program? So right now we're not committing to the MYP Middle Years Program. Just as a caveat here, most schools, I think within Brazil, I'm only aware of 2 schools that offer the full continuum, which is PYP, MYP, DP. So long story short here is we ensure, and Ms. Catherine actually talked a little bit about this during open house and can give more information, but the approaches to learning and the IB profile attributes, they intentionally weave into their lessons. So for example, Ms. Catherine has a list, she's met with the grade 6, 7, 8 teachers, and they choose, how am I gonna integrate risk-taking in, right? How am I gonna integrate these elements in? So it's not that we're ignoring it, it's still being addressed. We're still focusing on that inquiry framework. So we've made some strategic decisions. For example, Miss Amelia, who was a 5th grade teacher, PYP trained, moved into middle school as well, so that we can ensure she's anchoring the middle school English program in the PYP inquiry mindset as well, which leads us into the DP. So to directly answer your question, we want to wait a few years because it's a huge commitment on staff training, onboarding, and resources. So we understand we have finite resources, just like all schools. We want to focus them very intentionally on the DP program and then the PYP program, build that foundation very strong at the top and bottom, and then we're going to fill in the gap in middle school in a few years. Okay? I'm happy to talk about that in more detail if anyone would like to afterwards. Just let me know.
All right, thank you very much for being here, and I will see you in the next